Good afternoon from Los Angeles, everyone, and happy Friday. It's Alissa, Coram, and Ken Shreve here. And Ken, why don't you go ahead and give us a quick rundown of what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, another day of outperformance for the Nasdaq. I think for the bulls, it was just a really solid way to end the week. We got weekly gains of about 3% for the Dow, S&P 500, and Nasdaq, and a big earnings report from Splunk, fueling a
Yeah.
big rally in software stocks.
Yeah, we'll be definitely taking a look at that. But first, let's take a look at those major indexes. So as Ken mentioned, an outperformance day for the NASDAQ with an upside reversal. So we are just continuing to chug along, like you mentioned, strong weekly gains, and the NASDAQ remains well extended from that 10-day moving average.
Yeah, we actually looked at a chart of the S&P 500 yesterday and talked about that 3,000 level and the 200-day moving average. Could end up being a resistance level for the S&P, but you can see the Nasdaq has been holding very comfortably above the 9,000 level here, and I think the general consensus is that that's going to bring a move easily to the 9,500 level and maybe a test of its prior high of 98.38. So we'll see how that all plays out. But again, for the bulls today, a pretty constructive performance. We're going to talk about some leading stocks in a little bit, but I think the bulls have reason to be happy. And again, 3% weekly gains for the Dow, S&P 500, and Nasdaq.
Yeah, the Dow finished essentially flat for the day, but both the Nasdaq and S&P were able to reverse higher. So capping off the week on a nice note here before the 3-day weekend. But as you mentioned, Ken, Splunk had a very strong performance today on the heels of its quarterly earnings report, ticker SPLK, gaining about 13% in heavy volume, just blasting to new highs here on that quarterly earnings report. Even though it did have a miss on sales, looks like investors were really focusing in on that cloud services revenue. So a very strong gain here today for Splunk.
Yeah, definitely. I think investors following Splunk are used to this company delivering 30, 40, 50% year-over-year sales growth. And
Very true.
this latest quarter, it just kind of fell off the cliff here, up 2%. But that's just because the company is transitioning to a software as a service model, so they're sacrificing sales. But you can see in this MarketSmith chart that big annual earnings estimate for fiscal 22. So a big slowdown in earnings for 2021, 5 cents a share, and then they're expected to earn $1.36. So in fiscal 2022, you'd expect to see sales growth really reignite. And you mentioned a nice big surge in cloud revenue for Splunk. I think it was up 80% to 112.2 million. So this was a very bullish move for the stock, and yet another breakout in the software sector.
Yeah, that's right. And the software as a service model, we know how successful that's been for other names in the group. Adobe, just one of many dimensions. So if you're looking a little further ahead, that's definitely some good growth prospects there for Splunk. And next on our list, we want to talk about the post-earnings action for Nvidia out of the chip space. For those who bought that cup with handle breakout and were sitting on a decent sized gains, the team was saying it's okay to hold into earnings, and it looks like that paid off with a gain of about 2.9% for the post earnings reaction here for Nvidia today.
Yeah, I mean, this was really a classic setup for a possible sell the news situation, only because the stock had rallied so sharply ahead of
Right.
earnings. Sometimes a lot of news gets baked in, a lot of good news gets baked in quickly to a stock. So certainly that argument could have been made for Nvidia, especially when it crossed the 350 level ahead of earnings. But this, again, the MarketSmith chart here down at the bottom shows you a big earnings and sales increase for Nvidia. And again, this is just a story of strong demand for processors for cloud data centers, and also gaming chips. So I think data center revenue was up 80% to 1.14 billion. So the metrics were strong across the board at Splunk, and not surprising to see this reverse higher and still holding near highs here. So definitely the leader in the semiconductor sector at this point.
Yeah, Nvidia, ticker NVDA, looks like that 350 level could be a new support area. So what do you think, Ken? Might be nice to see it just take a little breath here for a while and maybe digest some of these strong gains?
Yeah, as Mike Webster likes to say on IBD Live every morning, pullbacks are healthy after a strong move. So I think it would be particularly bullish if Nvidia could hold above the 350 level here for several days. Even if it doesn't, I mean, you can see that it's still a test of the 10-day moving average. That little purple, yeah, there you go, the 10-day moving average, and then even a pullback to the 21-day would be pretty severe, but it still would not be a broken stock technically if it did that. So I suspect Nvidia being as strong as it is, it's probably going to just kind of consolidate tightly near highs here. Not expecting a really sharp pullback, but stocks will move with the market. So if selling starts to pick up in the broad market, you could see a little pullback in Nvidia, but it's definitely a leader at this point.
Such a good point. We'll give it some breathing room, as we also like to say. Now let's take a look at ADSK Autodesk, which is trading in buy range ahead of its earnings report coming up next week. And this is another name in the software group that boasts very strong fundamentals.
Yeah, in fact, maybe we can point out those annual earnings estimates in the top left there for Autodesk. You can see they earned $2.79 in fiscal 2020, and then 2021 and 2022, you're seeing some big earnings increases here. So you have a stock that's showing pretty strong technicals at this point, still in buy range. That's what's interesting here. Still in buy range from a 189. There's your 189.86 pivot. We had 10 cents, so the buy point is 189.96. Still in buy range. We're going to hear from Autodesk next week, Wednesday after the close. So this could be another good earnings report to watch.
Yeah, and it almost looks like the action pre-earnings for Autodesk mirrors a little bit of what we saw the pre-earnings action for Splunk. So, because it had just broken out ahead of the report, but we'll have to see what Autodesk says next week and see if that might be a catalyst for further gains.
Yeah, this is another outstanding company in the software sector, and that is an excellent observation because you're right, Splunk was still in buy range after a breakout. It was kind of a skittish breakout from a couple with handle base, but it was still in buy range, and I think just as strong as Splunk acted today, some may say, well, it's a little bit extended, but with the close the stock had, I would say Splunk was, people that wanted to nibble late in the session wouldn't have been totally wrong for doing so. It was a really strong day, so we'll see if results from Autodesk next week, are solid and could fuel another big move for the stock.
Yes, and speaking of big stock moves, that's what we're talking about each morning on IBD Live. If you haven't checked that out yet, we hope you do. It is our daily live stream for the first hour plus of trade, where we are sharing our screens, talking about the overall market, and actionable setups, whether they're earnings fueled gains or other just really strong technical action from top growth stocks. We definitely got you covered.
Absolutely, it was another great show this morning, and we slice and dice the market. Of course, the market's going to be closed Monday for Memorial Day, so it'll be a shortened week of trading next week. But we'll be back at it next week with IBD Live for sure.
Yes, that's right, everyone. And just a reminder, these conversations are for informational and educational purposes only, so make sure to do your own research. If you want to check out IBD Live, make sure to go to investors.com/IBD Live. We hope you have a fantastic 3-day weekend. Ken has a fabulous sandwich to go enjoy. But
that's right. This is
might as well give it a Friday shout out.
Bay Cities and Santa Monica. Yeah. Absolutely. Be my first time. Yeah.
Have a great Memorial weekend, and we'll see you right back here on Tuesday, everyone.